Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm State Representative Mike Mrowicki, and we are here at the State House in Vermont. We're about 2/3 of the way through the legislative session, and today we have a guest with us, Representative Emily Carris-Duncan.
Hi, Mike.
And Emily is living up in the hills of Windham County.
Yes.
And representing the people of how many towns do you represent?
I represent three:
Three.
Wilmington, Whitingham, and Halifax.
Wow. And we're so glad to have Emily joining our caucus. We have a good delegation that works well together, and Emily and the other freshmen have just been a great addition to that. Emily, what got you into thinking this was where you wanted to be for 18 weeks a year?
Well, I have a little bit of family history in the State House.
Indeed, you do.
My dad was a senator from 2006 to 2012, and I interned with him his last session and got kind of a taste for things here and promptly got scared. And then it's something that had always been in my mind. And then when I got a call from Emily Kornheiser saying that they needed somebody to run for my district, I said, well, all right, guess now's a chance.
All right. Well, it's really been wonderful to have you here. You're doing great work already as a freshman, and you're on the Commerce Committee.
I am.
Which is, with the economy seeing the challenges it is, it's important to have some of the pieces that you're picking up, especially with the tech world changing as it is. Now, you've been working on a really important bill around online safety of information. You want to share a little bit about what you've been working on there?
Yeah, so we have a kind of suite of bills around internet protections, around data privacy. I kind of come to it as a kid of Vermont who was raised with a very strong sense of privacy. I think a lot of people come to Vermont for privacy. And over the last 20, 25 years, we have had a slow erosion of that kind of in a false paradigm that says if you want safety, if you want convenience in the tech world, you have to give us your data. And, we as a state don't really believe that that is a fair exchange because it puts people at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked on passing a bill that would protect judges and other high-level municipal workers to protect their data and start to coax the tech companies into coming up with ways to better protect and not have so many data brokers with all of our information.
So what's a data broker?
Okay, so, well, it's a funny term.
People should know this because they have a lot to do with our lives.
Absolutely. And data brokers are not like by definition horrible, but there are entities that keep large swaths of information that could be your address, your name, your social security number, where you work. The data can actually get pretty deep, even to the point of like your hand-eye movements and how you walk and all of these sorts of things. And they can have all of that data available for sale. They can take you and lump you in with other people that maybe like share similar characteristics and then, send that off. They can do it by location. So for instance, they could take all Vermonters and kind of put them together. Often they say that the data is anonymized, but it's actually not that hard to unanonymize that data. If we're going to be honest, our government, we are a data broker because we hold a lot of citizens' information. A lot of that information is publicly available. So we're also looking at ways, and this, could be down the road because we got to do a lot of study about it, but ways that we can maintain our transparency, but also protect our data.
Yeah. I think the scope of this, I think, is beyond what I know and a lot of people know, and it's really important that you've been doing some good education as to the reality we're facing here. So thank you for that. So you mentioned a suite of bills, but
Mhm.
what will that include?
Okay, so we're looking, we have the S69, which is the kids code. So that
Yeah,
would
a big
be
one.
a big one, yes. So that would be change of any website, but changing the design features that keep our websites and social media sites very addictive. So the things like infinite scrolling,
Hmm.
the things like tracking and
Or
dark
doom
patterns,
scrolling
doom
is
scrolling, as we often, I mean, adults also get swept up
totally,
in this
totally.
too. Um, there's like they'll do like sort of little manipulations, like hide how you can make your changes, like bury all of that information in your settings, making it difficult for you to cancel. Yeah, so things like
Or get any kind of customer service.
exactly, or yes,
Yeah,
oh gosh, yes.
yeah,
So we're trying to help shift because we've also heard from youth themselves that find their phones too addictive. It's
yeah,
impacting their schooling, their mental health,
yeah.
their families thereby. So
I know in Putney, at our pre-K to 8 school, when students come in, they have to hand their phone off at the office. That gets put in a yonder bag,
mhm,
and they pick it up. One thing the principal shared, John Sessions, is that that bag buzzes all day long.
yeah,
And there's research that shows that the average person who's online a lot gets over 200 display messages a day.
yeah.
And if some of these kids are keeping their phones on all night, it's happening all
It
night long.
happens all night. We were actually just hearing about that in committee yesterday,
Uh-huh.
about how they just are constantly dinging. And then also that the notifications can be audible too. So they'll just be like almost like commercials, like,
Yeah,
you know, come here and play this game. And like,
yeah.
yeah.
And they're good at it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They are. They use a lot of similar like behavioral psychology techniques as gambling,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
addiction,
Yeah.
constantly getting those dopamine, like it's provable now. They're constantly getting these dopamine hits that are exactly the same as
Yeah.
addictive
And
behaviors.
that addiction to dopamine is really driving this too.
Yeah.
Um, what we have found, I think, not just in Putney, but other schools, that for the most part, students are okay with this.
Oh yeah. In Twin Valley Middle High School,
Yeah.
they got rid of the phones and it was within weeks. The sort of hallways were livelier,
Yeah.
the restroom was livelier,
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
engaging and with each other more in the
And,
community.
and I think perhaps this is really still new technology. I think it was
Yes.
2009 that the first iPhone came out. And that really was world changing. And I think we're trying to figure out how to moderate use of that. There's
Hmm.
certainly benefits to it. Steve Jobs said he wanted to give everybody a computer, and that's what the iPhone turned out to be.
Yeah.
There are iPhones now that are stronger than the computers they used to put the Apollo mission on the moon.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely
Yeah.
the leaps and bounds that we've taken. But I think about like early social media. We didn't have mobile devices, so it was desktop driven. So you were
Yeah.
kind of time limited.
Yeah.
And there is just an incentive in particularly with social media, but also with most any other, I mean, video streaming sites, it's the same too, of just the eyeballs. Like they just have the incentive to keep your
Yeah.
eyeballs on a website. For
Yeah.
me, like I run a website, I don't have an incentive to keep people's eyeballs on it in the same way that they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And we can talk about that website in a little bit and talk about art and how
Yes.
that fits into the big picture. But we're talking about kids now, and there's a lot of talk about kids and education
Yes.
right now. And there's a lot of talk starting with the last election that had to do with how we fund education and the reality that property taxes were really threatening people's homes,
Mhm.
how they could stay in Vermont or not. And we heard that. I think our first priority is we're trying to stabilize property taxes going into next year, and I think we will. And then the second piece of it is what kind of changes do we make? Do we make in governance and deliverance and in how we fund education? I think that second piece is something that's going to happen this year, which is creating a foundation formula,
Mhm.
which 30 other states do to fund education. And that next piece is going to be about governance, about deliverance, what kind of size, how many districts, how are we going to look at classrooms and even further down the line curriculum. And that's the piece that I think we're clear we need to go slow and deliberate. And what are you hearing from people back home about this whole process?
Oh, that they would like it to be mindful and deliberate and slow, and then particularly from the rural perspective, the rural communities need to have a voice at the table
Yeah.
because educational delivery is it's different than in a rural environment than it is in a city center. So yeah.
And in Vermont, there's rural and then there's rural.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
as a state, we are a totally rural state. Even our largest city, Burlington, is really a small neighborhood in most other places.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about a town of 2,000 or a town of 500, then the scale changes quite a bit. So
It does.
and I think we are moving forward in a deliberate fashion. And we know this is going to take time. And that's where we're bumping up against the governor, though, because he wants it done now.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think that the governor's seeing the last election gave him a hammer and he's trying to use it. And what we're saying is, no, it wasn't a hammer.
No.
It's not like what's happening in Washington. We don't have to blow up the education system to change it.
And I think there's a real just sort of panic sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And you can't make smart decisions when you're panicked.
No.
And I understand, there's no joke that we have a ton of pressures weighing down on this tiny state.
Yeah.
But we also can take the time.
Yeah.
And what I understood from the community, from my communities, is not that we need the change to happen immediately right now. They need to know that we're working and we are continually, deliberately, constantly working at this problem.
And it is a priority. I think we're from day one, this has been something we've been working on. And as I said, though, there's different parts to this. This is nothing that somebody's going to have a magic wand and fix.
No.
And I wonder if the governor's realistic when he's expecting this to be done this session, this year, especially since he didn't deliver us a plan until we were more than halfway through.
I know. And also, not for nothing, like this has been a long-standing problem. We actually in committee, so my committee works on career technical education, and Jay Ramsey came in with a document from Mortimer Proctor from like the 20s talking about vocational education. How are you going to match our needs as a state, our finances as a state, and our, those spaces to help train people and to create those community connections that hold that all together. And that was, this is a perpetual.
Yeah.
This is a perpetual sort of a tradition. Everybody gets their hand at it. And
it's our turn.
It is. It's our turn.
But when we look at how we fund education, we really haven't made any big changes since the 90s when the Brigham decision came down. So it's time. We're looking at a foundation formula, which 30 other states use. And I think we can develop one that will address the concerns the Brigham decision brought up.
Yeah.
But that piece that you were talking about, bringing pieces together of community and how career and technical education are really essential for this. Can you say more to that now? Because there's a lot of talk of that. And what are you looking at in committee for how we can continue to grow that piece?
Well, it's a lot of actually, in some ways, kind of leading from the governor's plan, where at the baseline, they want comprehensive education throughout the system.
Yeah.
And so if we can create a system that is sort of well unified, to be honest with you, and looks, because with career technical education, so much of it is hands-on learning as well as academic book learning. And I think that is for me as an educator, that is a teaching technique. That is something that can be deployed throughout the system. From we know some of the best pre-K and ECE programs are hands-on learning.
Yeah.
And we can continue to carry that forward. So I am in committee, that's basically the vision that we put forward, is that we would like to see it as a technique put through, that the funding systems, because the way that CTE is funded now is very separate, but yet united. So there ends up being this tension between who gets money, where does that money get to go? And we want to break that down because that's not actually helping kids.
No, and it can inhibit schools from actually saying, yeah, we want this student to go here.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's an economic reality if a school feels like they're losing money by sending a student to Brattleboro or another technical center. But the reality is that's what's the best choice for a lot of students.
Yeah.
And I like what you were saying about making sure those pieces are in harmony. The career pieces, the academic pieces.
Yeah, because it creates an unnecessary stigma that actually makes it very difficult for us to do our work as a state.
Yeah. We're realizing though that we need this more than ever. As the great retirement continues.
Oh, the great retirement.
The great retirement.
Oh,
which has decimated our workforce.
It sure has.
People are saying, okay, it's time. And in other areas, especially the medical professions, are saying, no, we need you. But in the trades, we're seeing it too. Try and find an electrician right now that has openings soon. Carpenters, right down the line. And it's essential that to have a full-bodied working culture, we need to have all of these things. So I'm glad to see. This sounds like some really good work you're doing. I know you get to work with one of the best chairs in the building, Mike Marcotte.
Sure do.
And you're doing great work. We only have a few minutes left because these half hours can go pretty fast. But I want to come back to the art piece and a little personal. Art is important to a number of people in our delegation.
Yes, it is.
And
we kind of have the art delegation.
We do. And we were talking a little bit before. And can you share a little bit about your art?
Yeah.
And the place in your life and how does it all fit in together?
Okay, so I am primarily a textile artist. I do a lot of dyeing and quilting and knitting and crocheting and weaving. I also am a bit of a musician, so in my studio these days, have been combining sound with my dye practice and making some very fun patterns and things. But yeah, I came back to Southern Vermont because I wanted to build out a studio where I could grow my dye stuff and also be able to practice and host people and, do all that fun art-based hospitality that I like to do.
Yeah, an essential piece. And I think that's the addition to Vermont that creates that quality of life we all want and what brings us here, what keeps us here.
Absolutely.
I hope as we move forward, we can continue to merge that with the other pieces of our lives, because this is really essential to what makes Vermont just a little bit more than some beautiful mountains, lots of trees and snow, which is great, but it's the people and what we do that really make Vermont the special place it is. So I'm glad you're here in Vermont. Or back in Vermont, one of those returners. And here in the State House, it's been a pleasure to work with you, and I'm looking forward to continuing and doing some good work.
Likewise, and thank you so much. You are like the anchor in the heart of our little crew, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you and all the people at BCTV for bringing our work in Montpelier back home. It's important that we get to share what we're doing here, and we want to hear from you. So we'll share our contact information. It'll be up on the screen. But until next time, thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.